All right, so now we're at question number 40 on the ACT English test. Now this one has a question stem, so we're going to read that. So let's read from here to here. At this point, meaning this point right here, we want to add it right after this sentence. The writer is considering adding the following true sentence. Okay, so before we read this sentence, we want to recognize this specific category of questions that we've talked about earlier. And if you're not familiar, you're definitely going to write this down. So it's a specific category of questions where we add or we delete information. Sometimes it says add, sometimes it says delete. In either case, you're going to follow these steps. We only add information if it does two things. If it's both new and it's relevant, meaning on topic, right? Whatever we're talking about, it has the same theme. It has to do both. It has to be new and it has to be relevant. So when would we delete it? Well, if it's not new, right? And we would just say if it's redundant, okay? So meaning if it repeats itself or it has some implied information. If it repeats itself means if it said this something similar earlier in the passage or maybe word for word or implied, right? Something that just by virtue of whatever we spoke about before, it's implied that this is true. So if I'm falling, it's implied that I'm falling to the ground. And I wouldn't need to say I'm going towards the ground. That's implied by I'm falling. So that's an example of implied information. Or, right, and here's the big thing, instead of and, right, we have or, and instead of relevant, we could just say off topic, right? Not related. Even tangentially related is off topic. So we want to be careful of that too. There's a certain degree of relevance that we need in order to establish that it's relevant. And we'll go through one of these answer choices, and I'll show you what I mean by this tangentially related topic. Okay, so before we read this, we really want to get a good understanding of what this paragraph's about. Otherwise, how can we assess if it's new and relevant? Now, hopefully you did that already when you were reading it, and you were reading for understanding, but let's go through it together. Okay, it starts here. Over periods of time, the weather changed drastically, the sea rose and fell by hundreds of feet, and the cave-creating process was repeated at different depths. The roofs collapsed on many caves, leaving the chambers exposed. Some of the blue holes contained caves, and others were mile-long interconnected tubes. Wow, so it looks like we're talking about this cave creation process and how it's occurred over a lot of time, over a great depth. So let's read this and see if it's related. At 663 feet deep, Dean's Blue Hole in Long Island, Bahamas, is a popular cave diving destination. Okay, so we're talking about a cave diving destination, but are we talking about the diving destinations or are we talking about the cave formation? We're talking about the cave formation. So is it new? Definitely new. Is it relevant? Nope, it's not relevant. So can we add it? We can't add it because it needs to be both new and relevant. So we know F and G are totally off the table. Now, H and J, before you read the evidence, let's think in our minds, what type of evidence would we need in order for it to be H or J? Well, we need the evidence that says it's irrelevant. Whichever one says that in so many words is going to be the correct option. Why don't you read them and find the one that says in some other word that it's not relevant? Let's read H. No, because it offers a detail that is unrelated. Okay, that's the keyword there, unrelated, to the paragraph's focus. I know it's going to be H because unrelated, they really just mean not relevant. It's off topic. No, because it does not provide an adequate description of Dean's Blue Hole. Well, it doesn't really provide an adequate description, I guess, but it definitely provides a description here, right? So even if I wasn't sure if I was to add it or delete it, I can go over here and is there a description? Yes, there's a description right there. So I know that this provides a description because I would put no, because it does not provide an adequate description. Well, it does provide a description, so there's something wrong here anyway, so J would be off the table. Okay, so what I'm trying to show here is that even if you didn't recognize that you would have to delete it based off of this, I want you to look in the evidence and try to figure it out from that point. So if this is not true, right? If whatever we're saying here is not true, then I could delete it. Let's go through F and G and see if we can just delete it based off of the wrong evidence. Because it supports the preceding sentence by providing an example of a blue hole that is very deep. Well, I don't really know if it's very deep or not. It sounds pretty deep to me. But again, this is only tangentially related to the previous sentence, which just talks about some of them are big and some of them are small. So just by saying, oh, here's a hole, and to say that that's related, no, it's not. It doesn't really support it at all. So F would be wrong because the evidence is wrong as well. Yes, because it allows the reader to visualize the specific blue hole in the Bahamas. Well, if I'm going to visualize this hole in Bahamas, man, I'm going to want some detail about it, right? I want to know what it looks like. I want to know what it feels like down there. What is it? What's the air temperature like? I don't have any visualizing information. I just know it's really popular. Okay, so it doesn't visualize. It doesn't help me visualize that specific blue hole in the Bahamas. So again, G is wrong, and I'm left with H. All right, so what's the best way to answer a question like this? Recognize it's an add delete. Know what I need to do to figure out if I need to add it or delete it. Make sure I have a good understanding of the paragraph. That way I'm armed with all the information I need to in order to assess if I should add or delete this. Once I make my decision, cross out two of them and just make sure you find the one that has the evidence that related to either not relevant or redundant or one of these, right? Now, if you can't figure it out, if you're not sure if you add it or delete it, next option is to go into this supporting evidence or the reasons why. I would either click yes or no. And make sure that these are wrong. So if you can go and you can just eliminate things based off of some throwaway terms here, well, then you've also eliminated some possible options. So there's multiple ways to go about doing this. And the first way is the one that we did together. But if that's not really working for you, you can go into some of the support here and try to get rid of things that just are not true. Thank you.